Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here and for being with me to have a conversation with a very good friend of mine, Mignon Faget. So, Mignon, I'm going to start, first of all, talking about your education and what inspired you. Tell us a little bit about growing up in New Orleans and your earliest inspirations and what led you to pursue a degree in fine arts and a career as an artist.
Okay, well, that started when I was very young. I was the youngest of 4 children, and my sister was 16 years older than me. She was a professional. She was a dentist, and she had beautiful clothes. So I had a mother who sewed, and I was inspired by, I think, mainly movies. I loved to go to movies and used to write to movie stars for their autographed pictures. So that's really, I had these 2 role models, my sister and my mother. So I was a rebel in a way because I went to Catholic schools for 13 years. And I'll never forget, I went to Sacred Heart for high school. We had, well, it wasn't exactly a class, but it was a lecture, a weekly lecture. It was called Politeness.
We could use that today a little bit.
Politeness. And in that lecture, we were told that one must always dress in a manner not to call attention to oneself. And I thought, whoa, what are clothes for anyway? So that was kind of my early education and my entry into the clothing thing, because my mother made all my clothes. And she would take me with her and let me decide what I wanted it made from. So, I don't think she was trying to teach me. She just wanted me to be free. And so I would actually design the clothes and she would make them. So we were partners. And she was a living saint because I'm very demanding.
Well, thank God for Mignon's mother, actually.
Yes, thank you, Mother.
So you graduated from Newcomb College in 1955. So would you share some of your experiences from the time when you were at college and how that has influenced your career?
Okay. I was very sure that I did not want to go to Loyola or any other Catholic school. I finished with that. I was a good Catholic. So I wanted to go to Newcomb, so I did, and I decided that fine arts was what I wanted to study. I enjoyed my professors. My major was sculpture. Jules Strupek looked like a truck driver, and he was this great guy, and we had all this equipment that was sort of surplus equipment from the war, World War II, and we learned how to use a lot of heavy-duty equipment. My art history professors were very inspiring. Actually, John Kennedy was teaching at Newcomb College at the time. Of course, he was probably one of the most famous art historians and wrote for the Times and for the New Yorker. And I still remember the lectures. And then Alfred Moyer came, and he was kind of sassy and provocative, and he was a great lecturer too. So what I liked to learn was the idea of learning the history of culture through the art that was produced. So learning history through what that culture produced was taught me how to think, really.
And then talk a little bit about your experience in Paris and how that had a shape on on what you eventually did as a career.
Well, Virginia Saucy's sitting here, and her mother became the administrator for the junior year abroad program, but not then. I was first year JYA, and it was a miracle that my father allowed me to go because I was very, very restricted. I wanted to be a wild girl, but I was, but no one knew.
Not till she went to Paris.
I was a wild girl in secret. Anyway, we went to Paris, and it changed my life. I was amazed at, that the French were still recovering from the World War II, and it was the middle of the existential movement. And Jean-Paul Sartre and Camus were both alive, and you'd see them in Le Select, one of the famous cafes. And everyone wore black turtleneck sweaters. That's the only thing I ever saw. And of course, I had brought a trunk full of my sweater sets and cashmere sweater sets in pastel colors. Well, you don't wear that. I had 2 sweaters. One was charcoal and one was black, and I had one black skirt, and I wore that every single day. Changed the top, same skirt, because I really didn't want to be identified as American girl. I mean, I didn't hide it, but I wanted to blend in with the culture. So I never went out with anyone, any boy that was an American. I stuck with the French, and that's what I was there for. Anyway, there were galleries. I spent a lot of time in museums and a lot of time in galleries. And there was one gallery next to my favorite cafe, and it had Judge Jensen. Judge Jensen is a silversmith. Well, he's dead now, but from Sweden. I mean, Denmark.
Mm-hmm.
Denmark. And his designs appealed to me, and I think that my work was very strongly influenced because they were based on forms from nature, on his flatware, or in his jewelry. And silver. I loved silver because I really didn't like gold that much because you couldn't work large. So with silver you can work large and it doesn't get flashy.
So Mignon, let's talk a little bit about your career and how you grew a business. What motivated you to become a professional artist?
Well, by this time I was married with children and bored.
She's telling the truth.
I'd done my house 3 times and did a lot of volunteer work for cultural organizations, but and some modeling. But I'd come home and it was like, well, what did you do today? Well, that's what I did, and I was bored. So I decided to take a course in printmaking. A friend of mine was teaching. Dominican had a college then, which is now part of Loyola. And she was a friend, and she was a graduate student at Newcomb. Well, I guess at Tulane in art. She was an artist. And so we were doing prints, and we were doing block prints. And the first one was of my dog. The second one was a beautiful nautilus shell that I had, and I made it like repeat in a border pattern. It was about this wide. And I printed it on white sailcloth and had a dress made from it. And it was a big success. Everybody loved the dress. So it was like, oh, well, we want to buy it. You want to buy it? Yeah, well, okay. So I started a cottage industry. I would do the designing and the printing and bundle up, and the cutting, and bundle them up and deliver them to my seamstresses that I had several seamstresses. And then I got tired of driving around the city all day delivering bundles, so I found a little river shack on Dublin Street right off the levee. And I opened up a boutique. It was really a workroom. The seamstresses were in the back, and there was one room that I had as a showroom, and you could come in. It was something I had seen in New York when I went to Parsons one summer, right after I designed my first few collections. And that was interesting because Soho, I lived in Little Italy, and Soho in Little Italy had not been discovered yet. The artists were living there because all of the industrial people had moved out of New York, out of Manhattan. So I would see, a place that was open to the street, and a woman in there, and she had her own designs. Can you all hear me? Because I'm not sure this is...
Yeah, when you hold it closer, you can hear
Yeah,
it.
okay. That's better, I think. So I thought, that's what I want to do. So when I got home, I started looking, and believe it or not, I took my clothes into boutiques in New York and sold. I had a stack of orders, but I had no way to make them.
Mignon once told me that her greatest strength is she had the idea and she would get other people to make it for her, including her mother.
Yes, of course. And so I opened up this boutique, but and I had sewing ladies and actually some people my own age working there. And then this other angel fell into my lap, Charlotte Norman. She came in, and I said, okay, here's this folder, and it was labeled everything else. So she had worked in New York, and I'd known her actually from D.H. Holmes, where she was a buyer, and she didn't have a business degree, but she was straight business. And she knew how to manage things and coordinate things and get them done, and how to stretch the bills. So at the same time, there were some old friends that learned what I was doing and became supportive. One was an old boyfriend that worked for an advertising agency, and the Bank of New Orleans was his account. And they were doing a series of commercials for small accounts. And they did one of me. And that made my name. All of a sudden, I was out there, and it wasn't just discovering me on Dublin Street, but it was the story of my life. They had a lady that looked like my mother, and a little girl with long pigtails that looked like me when I was a child. And that was the first phase. Then there was me in the sculpture lab at Tulane. Irene Newcomb, excuse me.
I can't believe you made that mistake.
I can't either. I will pay for this.
We forgive you.
Thank you. Maybe it was because I saw my picture as homecoming queen.
You should look over there.
Anyway, and then they showed me walking through my store, and I was in business. So
Here, I'm gonna ask you a different question that kind of follows on this. If you listen to how Mignon's business actually got started, it was very organic. She had a talent, and she found people to work with her. So I've asked you this before, but did you ever have a mentor, or who were the people that really were influential in getting you started and helping further things along? You mentioned Charlotte.
Yes.
And the Bank of New Orleans. That sounds like those were
Yes.
pivotal moments. Who else was really important?
Well, there was a teacher in the business school at Tulane, who had a class, and he brought, he wanted to do a marketing program for me. This was when I was very small. And he brought his class, and one of the women there was an exchange student from Iran, and she came to work for me. She said, Mignon, you have to get real. Every piece of clothing you sell, you lose $5.60. So it's like,
Obviously, these things were not important to Mignons.
I don't give up things easily. And so, of course, I didn't stop making the clothing, not then, but eventually I realized she was right, because the jewelry was just taking off. I had my father had retired. He was a doctor, and he had one of those beautiful stainless steel instrument cases, and I took that and cleaned it up, put it in the shop, and put all my jewelry in it. And people were coming in and buying it, and it was like, you want to buy that? It was so gratifying and fun. So that was how I phased into being more commercial. You know, silver is a precious metal, and the fact that my jewelry was precious metals, I think, was a very smart thing to do. The very first piece of jewelry I made, I melted down some of my wedding presents.
I'm dying to know what Mr. Humphrey said when he got home.
He couldn't care less. They were bonbon dishes, and I didn't think I would miss those. So they became beautiful seashells.
That's great. So let's talk a little bit about your career and advice that you would give to people that are here today. You know, there are so many young women here who are just getting started. So the first thing that I'd like you to talk about a little bit is, as a manager, as a business owner, how would the people who have worked with you or work with you describe you? And I'm not going to ask them because there are about 3 or 4 of them in the room. So I'm going to let you.
Please, it might be embarrassing. Well, I think people think that I'm detached because, like, I don't want a lot of people to talk to me when I go into the shop. Like, I'm walking here, don't talk to me. But I am demanding and very exacting, but warm and friendly. I feel like they're my family because I have a lot of Vietnamese that work on the jewelry bench, and they love the work, and a lot of them have worked for me for 30 years, and they're very, very dedicated. So I think I'm warm, and I appreciate them and feel close to them. But I am a boss,
Yeah,
and I
and
want
you're
the
focused.
work done right, and
Makes
and
sense.
everyone respects that, I think.
So do you think being a woman has ever held you back in your business or in your career path?
Well, in an overall sense, no. I think that being a woman was an enhancement to my career because I design for women. You know, when I'm designing, it's more of an objective approach to an idea I have. And then when it gets made, and I put it on, or I put it on someone who works there, it completes the circle. So I think that women are very straightforward and honest with you and don't play games. And I think that most of the women I have worked with, I thought were super good.
So if there was one thing that you might have done differently knowing what you know today, what would that be?
I don't know what, I would probably get more education in business and know how to develop a strategy. That was something that at least I understood. I would still have someone else perform that purpose in my business, because if I do that, how can I design? And design is what I'm good at and what I like to do. You know, to take something simple, like I've done collections based on bones, and there's something called animism, and it sort of picks up a spirit of its own, and, you know, until you put it on, it's not complete.
So do you have any advice or observations that you'd share with, you know, our current students or any of the entrepreneurs that are here today?
Well, times today are really different, I think. People have so much information and online, and but I think knowing your passion. See, I was passionate about this. I had to do it. It was my liberation. And I think if you have a passion, you should recognize it and go with it and find a way to do it by having someone else take care of what they're good at doing.
So I think many of you in the audience probably know Mignon best for the design work that she's done and as an artist. But what you may not know is how involved she has been in our community and what she has given back to that community. After the city flooded in 2005, a lot of businesses closed for good. You can tell this woman of determination would never have even thought about doing that. So,
Yeah.
Mignon, when you reopened your galleries, you took an active role in the city's recovery and the health of our economic environment. So can you talk a little bit about some of the things that you've done there and, you know, what causes you've actually helped?
Yes, I'm very proud of that. Thank you. What happened was I was in South Carolina, where I have a house, and the weekend of Katrina, on Friday, the lieutenant governor, who is our mayor now, had a big symposium based on people from other large cities that had formed an economy based on the arts. And I was with Virginia. It was all day long and very stimulating. So when I was exiled, I called the lieutenant governor's office and spoke to someone there, and I said, I want to help, so what can I do? And from that, I got on the phone with my model maker, and I said, okay, we're going to do a very low-priced fleur-de-lis that we'll do in bronze and in sterling, and we sold hundreds and hundreds of them because we were, thanks to Virginia, we were the first store, luxury goods store open in the city. Yeah, we put a sign with big fleur-de-lis and said, open, open. And as you probably know, those of you that were here, Magazine Street was the center of the city. And so people were coming in and buying their thank you gifts for people that had helped them. And it was extremely gratifying. And I donated a percentage, which turned out to be $170,000, to the Cultural Economy Foundation. It was formed from that first effort. And then when BP's oil spill occurred later, I did the same thing with all of the pieces that I had done about the environment, like the fish I done a collection of little fish when the aquarium opened, and oysters and pelicans, and on a black ribbon, and the ad said, "In mourning." And my staff didn't want to do that. They thought it was drab. And I said, well, it is drab. It's a drab affair, and I want to shock people. I think a little bit shock in your promotion wakes you up, and we sold tons of those too. So that added another $150,000 to donations that I picked all the foundation of the arts community to donate to: the Newcomb Art Gallery, NOCA, the Ogden, the CAC, and the New Orleans Museum of Art. They all shared. And I have to tell you, that was the most fun I think I've ever had since I was an adult. To give all that money away made me feel like I had never felt before, and I still am so happy I did that. And we still do that kind of thing with the Coalition to Restore Coastal Louisiana, which is a very important issue with me. You know, one thing I've done in my career, which is, you know, all about invention and creativity, is when I start feeling dry, I go back to school and I'll study a subject that I've been interested in but didn't really know anything scientific. I came here and took a botany course from this professor who's a very, very exciting professor. Stephen Darwin is his name. And of course the field of botany is the oldest of natural sciences, and there's so many stories, and he was a great lecturer. And one day he said, certain plants belong to a special class called passive armament. And when he said that, it was like, wow, that's just my kind of thing. So I did a whole collection based on thorns and prickles and things that hurt. And so you can wear those.
Things that hurt.
I call the collection armament, so you can arm yourself. And the thorns are collectibles, so you can earn your thorns also.
As all women do. Over time.
So it's things like that you know, refresh my creative spirit, and learning at the same time. And now I know all these Latin names for different plants.
So before we're going to take a few questions from the audience, but you know, I do want to talk about Mignon as an alum. She has been actively involved in Newcomb Art. She helped found the Newcomb Art Gallery and is still a very good patron of the art gallery. She has been involved in the Alumni Association. Many of you know that she has made jewelry that has helped support the Alumni Association. So Mignon, can you talk about why it has been important to stay associated with the university and with your alma mater?
Of course. Well, the title alma mater is your soul mother, and I feel that my source of education is my alma mater, and I think it's gratifying and exciting for me to be able to give back. It's pretty simple, but I like the symbols that belong to Newcomb, the acorn and the twigs. I've done some things that, well, there are some different, the oak tree, of course, and I did an umbrella that has oak leaves printed on the inside, and it's called Under the Oaks, of course. So Newcomb taught me how to think and how to be independent, and nourished my creative spirit.
So now I'll be happy to take any questions anybody might have of Mignon from the audience. And don't be shy. Yes, ma'am. Can you stand up and just tell everybody your name?
My name is Smidge Perry, and I'm an alum of the law school, 2002, and I'm a lawyer turned entrepreneur, and I'm actually starting a custom clothing business to do domestic manufacturing based in New Orleans, business apparel for working women. And I'd like you to think, to your point about the kind of quality control, particularly given that there's been so much outsourcing over the years of manufacturing, especially in textiles, as well as anything related to accessories or design and so forth. How do you maintain the consistency in your product and the quality control with a brand that is so large as yours?
Well, I'm there every day. And I have a person whose job is quality control. What?
We make it all here.
Yeah, we make
Yeah,
it all
that's
here.
good.
So the things that I contract out, I do a large collection of home product, glasses and other things for the home, candlestick holders, and we are very careful, and we test the contractor carefully. It has to be the right quality and the right price to be able to market it. So quality control, without it, don't bother.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. Any other question?
But good luck. I'll be glad to
Yes,
help
and
you
stand
anyway.
up and tell us your name and your affiliation.
I'm actually, I own my own social service agency, counseling, and I'm a social worker. But I wanted to ask you about what you just said as far as being there every day and wondering, in your perspective, how has that played a part? I think people open businesses and want to, at some point, step away and somewhat let it run itself. So how do you think the fact that you've been there every day has affected your product and your brand? And would it be, do you think if you had taken a break or stepped away more, would you still have the type of brand and the qualities that you have?
You'll have to ask me that in a couple of years, and then I can tell you
You mean if you step away?
if I step away. Yeah.
I heard that.
No, I think that I have stepped away in a gradual way. I don't go to work in the morning. I go half day. So when I go, I should have stuff to see. But I work directly with my two design people that implement my ideas. One is home product, and the other one is jewelry. The quality control is important, but the ideas of what my next, I design by collection. So I don't design one piece of jewelry unless it's a particular thing that someone asked me to do. But I design jewelry by collection. So where do you wear jewelry? The fingers, the neck, the ears, and so the whole collection tells a story. And I think probably the most irritating thing in my life is when other people in the jewelry business copy my verbal ideas. Like this one store that says, "The story is in the box." Where do you think you got that from? Anyway, is that an answer?
Yeah.
So
I think it's clear that Mignon being there has really made the brand.
Yes, and I heard her say that there are two people that are responsible, and I'm sure those are trusted people to you.
Yes, of course.
And they've been
And
with you a
they
long
know
time.
my mind. The two
Yeah.
designers that work under me, they know my mind as far as, this collection, we're going to make it a little cutting edge and shocking. And I just finished 2 whole collections based on textiles and lace. And that is very soft and feminine, and it's based on, I keep going back to textiles as an idea source. Years ago I did a collection called Knots, and it was really based on the idea of wrapping and tying and what happens when that idea, the tension and the quality of the surface, when it's translated into sterling silver, it takes on the properties of that metal. So that dynamic is very important. But I think that the people that work with me are, of the same mindset. They've worked with me for so long. The jewelry person has worked with me for 34 years, so that is a long time. Yes?
Amy?
Amy Freeman, and I'm more of a business mind, so I really appreciate your designs because I can't design. So I'm just always so happy with artistic mind. What is next? I mean, you've started with clothing, we've heard some of the journey. Like, where are you going next? Like, I feel like there's always something coming, so your next collection or your next big thing. I'd love to know because I love hearing.
You want to know?
Well, and we won't steal it, we promise.
Okay, the next collection, and it's already been taken to New York to show magazines, is called Hardware. And what I did was get real hardware store hardware and translate it into mixing it with things like pearls and other stones. It's pretty tough. I think it kind of speaks for where we are right now. And I bet all the women in this room, as tough as you are, would like to wear a piece of hardware, would you?
Yes, we all want our ornament, as you call it. All right, one more question before we move to the next session, if there is one. If not, I just want to say that you've only got an hour of Mignon today, and this is one very extraordinary woman who has built a business, who's built a brand. She's a great role model for all of us in so many ways. Many of us who have worked with her over the years have gotten to be really good friends with her. And it really is an honor for me to sit here and have her share her thoughts with you. So Mignon, thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
She is a
Yvette.
very special person.
I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm so pleased to see so many of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice.